Good evening, everyone. My name is Porsha Olayiwola. I'm a writer and educator, student, poet, futurist, and fashionista. No, sir. I'm going to share some poems with y'all in light of the world, in lieu of being big and black and alive. This first poem is the first poem in this book that I wrote. It's called I Shimmer Sometimes Too. And the first poem in the book is what I'll share. It's called Had My Parents Not Been Separated After My Father's Traffic Stop, Arrest, and Deportation from the United States of America. We might all be sitting about the pink kitchen table with the white legs. My father, a taxi driver, might have come home late in the evening with 2 large chuck steaks, bloodied red, fresh, best he could bring. He might have seasoned the meat, his thick brown hands gently letting loose salt how God did earth. He may lay a sheet of cayenne over the flesh, a homeland conquered by sun, a fire gouged between cheeks, eyes watering a flag of surrender. My father might have survived the night to serve us. My father, with his skin shiny, his head smooth, might have built me a treehouse in the front yard with tools from his orange metal box. And my mother, sharp, discerning, the quiet keeper of sacred emblems like our family's marrow, might have never let me climb in that treehouse because, as it were, gunshots littered our streets the way the dead plagued a hospital. Had my father not been deported, he and my mother might have had another child. It's likely they'd build a new back porch and have a garden with peppers, just like our neighbor Ronnie. My mother might grow a row of cabbage all green and tight, light and ball like this. It'd be a Wednesday. And my father, my brother, and I might whisk our bikes down Lakeshore Drive or pitch a tent in the front yard or play Terminator or watch the movies where Eddie Murphy played a cop from Beverly Hills. My father would have been filled with enough cracks in his face to cause an earthquake of laughter to ripple through our home. One dusk, with the light gleaming in from our living room windows, I imagined he might put on one of my mother's bright silk dresses, the purple one. He squeezed his feet into her pumps and pranced around the house he bought her as a gift years before. My mother might have giggled at my father's silliness, and he may have sauntered over to her with his palm down and his wrist bent as though he was expected to have his hand captured by a long-awaited love. My mother might have said something like, "Man, if you don't take off my good dress, you finna buy me another one." And she would have not really been mad. And you could tell by how she cocked her neck back into the side, alabaster gleaming a curve into her face. She would smile through the threat. And my father might have held her around the waist and pulled her into his chest, how I do the woman I love when I miss her so much it aches. And my parents may have kissed, maybe on the lips, and my father, fool, may have reached his hand to my mother's string of beads, removed it, and placed the necklace over his own head to lay along his chest. Her earrings may dance from his lobe, and my father, a man who gave like a tree, might have lined his fingers over my mother's tuned heart and swayed his hips to its cadence. Hey y'all, I hope folks are doing well. I'm still getting used to this background, this ring light, and still vibing, sending good energy and doing these poems, because, there's work in that as well. So I am from Chicago. I live in Boston, where I do work, and I'm the poet laureate. And I'm also half Nigerian, right? And I do a lot of work or a lot of thinking about, I want to take these off so bad, but the thing is I can't see it. So we'll see how this goes. But I do a lot of work around the Black diaspora. And, as half Black Chicago and half Nigerian, the diaspora literally lives in my body, right? And in my blood. And one thing I have been studying and looking into is water. So specifically, the Black diaspora and water. So I've been writing a lot of poems about that. I'm going to share this with y'all. Excuse me as I get myself all situated. This is a live show. So I've been doing a lot of poems about the Black diaspora and water. And when I went to visit my father this last time, maybe 2 years ago, we went to a coastal town outside of Lagos in Nigeria, and we went on a tour of a slave castle that was going from that particular town, Badagry, into Brazil, right? And on the route there was a well that slavers hired root workers to fix, right, to put poison in, and the point was to have them forget their memory, right? And so this poem is a reimagination of that particular instance and idea, and I'm gonna throw these back on and vibe out again. It's called We Drink at the Alternation Well. And it begins with an epigraph. Motivated forgetting is a psychological defense mechanism whereby people cope with threatening and unwanted memories by suppressing them. And that's from Amy N. Dalton and Lee Hong. In Badagry, there is a hungry well of water and memory loss. In Badagry, there was a well of people lost across a haven of water. In Badagry, there was a port overwhelmed and unreturned. To omit within the mind is to ebb heavenward. Memory is a wealth choking the brain in unresponsibility, violence in the mind, and the mind forgets in order to remember the self before the violence begat. In Badagry, trauma washes ungodly memory heavenward. In Badagry, there is an alternation well meant to wish away a passage, meant to unhaven a people. Violence is underwhelming in return. What the body eats, the mind waters. Responsible is the memory for unremittal. Royal is the body for return. God is the mind for wafting. Forgetting is a port homeward. In Badagry, hungry memory grows angry. In Badagry, the memories unchoke, trauma uneats the royal. In Badagry, there is a heaven of people responsible for the birthright of remembering, for the well of us across a haven of water, overwhelmed and unreturned. Yeah, I'm still getting to know that poem, but it felt really good to do. That felt really good to do. And thank y'all for letting me share that. And I'm just thinking, I think a lot about memory and remembering. I write a lot of historical poems based in history, or encounter memories. And doing that work, just thinking about, reclaiming things that have happened because of the Black diaspora. And with that, I'm going to reclaim another memory, or offer a counter memory to this instance during the civil rights movement, right? People might have seen the photo, but it's a man pouring bleach or acid into a pool because folks are trying to integrate it, right? And this poem is about that. And I'm gonna read it two ways just to have a little fun, okay? Don't judge me. It's called If You Tell It Backward, St. Augustine, Florida, 1964. If you tell it backward, no Black person alive today can be found working at the Hilton. JT and Al went back to the Manson Motel and saw it had been reconstructed, but still a graveyard. Years before, the kids are all cuffed and dragged into the jailhouse, nude bearing bathing suits for a leap into segregation into a swimming pool. Question: what degree is the burn when acid gets in the mouth, the eye, or on the body? The girls move from the edge where the manager, James Brock, that's his name, pours a bottle of muriatic acid into the water. He starts to lose his temper, his mind, his job, his white man power built on savagery. Anyway, he gets angry because the kids here are Black and ain't supposed to be in this pool, splashing to escape the burden of a southern June barking on their backs, feverish in their youths, sugared and sweet sweat, never telling their parents they were heading to the pool for some fun to slope the spine. I can see now JT and them just swelling, sailing, swimming on a humid day where the summer swelters and heat from the sun glows the skin jet black. And I'm gonna try it backwards because that's the title. I don't know if this is gonna work. We're gonna see together. It's gonna be fun. The skin jet black, the sun glows, and heat from the summer swelters on a humid day where swimming, just swelling, selling JT and them, I can see now, to slope the spine for some fun to the pool they were heading, never telling their parents, sugared and sweet sweat, feverish in their youth, June barking on their bodies, the burden of a southern, splashing to escape in this pool are Black and ain't supposed to be because the kids here. Anyway, he gets angry, built on savagery, his white man power, his mind, his job, his temper. He starts to lose into the water of muriatic acid, pours a bottle, that's his name, James Brock, where the manager, from the edge, the girls move. On the body, in the eye, or the mouth, when acid gets in, is the burn what degree? Pool question. At a swimming for a leap into segregation, bearing bathing suits, into the jailhouse nude and dragged, are all cuffed. Years before, the kids, a graveyard, reconstructed but still, and saw it had been the Manson Motel. JT and Al went back to, at the Hilton, found working, alive today can be no Black person if you tell it backward. I just tried that at the last end. But yeah, these are my water poems. I've been playing and thinking about water, and just, yeah, it's just really an interesting thing. I read a quote that was just saying, you know, water is like the only thing that has existed. There's never new water, right? There's never new water. The planet doesn't produce new water. So all of the water that has always been here, or that is here, has always been here. And isn't that such a memory to behold, right? I think about that and water. This next poem is about Dorothy Dandridge, who was, people say she was before her time, but really she was before the civil rights movement. And so she didn't get a lot of opportunities that, you know, were supposed to be afforded to her because of racism. But she played Carmen Jones, and this story is about, you know, it's a reimagination, right? A counter memory of a time she was at a pool in Vegas at a hotel, and she said, oh my God, I can't wait to get into the pool. And they said, we'll have to drain it if a Black person gets in it. And this is called, pardon me, I'm trying to give you all the full effect. This is called Dorothy Dips a Toe into a hotel pool after being warned the water would need to be drained should a black person swim in it. 1953, Las Vegas. And all at once, without and within, each well of wet everywhere swelled dry. The woman in the shower, shriveling, shaken, bare. The cook steaming at the sink's faulty faucet. The rust keening and dragging itself through pipes. Chalices unfilled, air wilts the face. Moisture abandons the flesh, the breath, the girth. Water unflows, reruns away like blood from a wound. The swimming pool, brimming moments ago, now hold mothers who hold babies, dry sobbing at its base. Guests at the last frontier lay leisurely, their bodies broiled brittle on the deck. The black spell is the yes cascading over a no. The anti to the anti, all kept from me, and spite shall spite keep from you with force. And in another land, unpromised, the color blue opens and spreads to blanket each eye. Dorothy stands at the water's ledge. Her curls and linen lie loose. Her skin, cool and sweet, sings a song unsang but known. Dorothy, a tall tide, coaxing herself into herself. Dorothy, a good curse, moves until waves wade at her waist. The dancing wet rushes to gather at her hips, and she cups the clear in her palms and splashes upward. Dorothy lifts her arms in ocean rain, urges the body to name itself religion. Dorothy splatters and ripples bring forth a sanctum. Each droplet is plenty for the city's southeast. A shower gives itself to the children playing at the hydrant on 83rd. A spray fills the pot of coloreds on the back burner. Another flows through a school's fountain once lined with lead. Dorothy swishes water into the sugar breeze and it lingers in air. No one thirsts. Moisture soothes a lonely throat. Dew demands a mother's seeds to grow. Dorothy raises the ocean, and oh, I want to tell you how her hands cradle full drops toward the sky, how the water could hardly stand to let her go. Whew, thank you. Yeah, I'm trying to do some joyous poems too. I'm trying to find that joy, really been thinking about that and using it as a tool despite death that is perpetual on the soil in this country. It's really scary, Joyful moment. I got really excited when I put on this outfit because I love yellow. And this color skin looks good on yellow. And so I made it an accent, Boop. This is me, and I'm telling a joke. Please laugh. No. Okay, so I'm gonna keep moving. I'm gonna go back to the book for a second. This poem is short, and I kind of love it. In addition to doing Afrofuturist work and like counter memory work, I also am really into dystopia, and I don't mean to be, but I am, and that's just where we're at. So that's this, right? Dystopic future, perhaps. Today is a day of tiny massacres, wherein the flight attendant laughs about my name, or I am pulled over on the way home from tour, or the European foreigner asks me where to buy drugs at the bar. And so, before I leave my home, I remove my skin. I pull the nude zipper from under my chin down to my waist. I reach to my shoulder and peel back the dark bark brown coating. I pull the sheath to my knees and step out of my skin like it is a jumpsuit. I spent too much time letting the outside get on. I hang my skin over the arms of my chair like a leather jacket. Wrinkles, a rippled heirloom, defaced myself in the mirror. This flesh, oh veins, and blood, meat, an animal, large, eye, spear, stare, back, black, blooming pink, salmon, budding, bright red lines running all over my body like soldiers. Dystopia, but I totally dig it, not gonna lie. I'm gonna go back to my laptop. Mostly, this is not a newer piece, but rather a really old piece. And I'm doing it, one, for a lot of reasons, right? It's been on my heart, honestly. It's really been on my heart. I think I wrote it back in 2015. Here we are 5 years later, welcome to the future. And it's resurfaced on the internet, in my life. And recently, one of my good friends, DJ Washam, asked to, produce it, some kind of, music behind it, and it's pretty incredible. But I want to do it because it keeps coming up, and it's necessary for me to do. Not to mention on the day that I am recording this, it is also Oluwatoyin's birthday, the 19-year-old activist who was killed. And yeah, I don't know what else to say. Also thinking about Breonna Taylor, Sandra, of course, and even like Black women who are alive and suffer small deaths every day, big deaths at the job, in the bathrooms, etc., so forth, or even Megan Thee Stallion, how somebody, shot her, another Black person shot her, and she has to defend herself because of that. It's just thinking about all of these instances of Black women. And yeah, I'm just going to share with you straight from the archives. I suppose it's called Magic Trick. I don't know. I don't remember giving it the title. Last night, no one showed up to march for Rekia Boyd. Rekia was shot dead in the head by cops in Chicago on Monday. A Cook County judge acquitted police of killing Rekia. Dante Servin, charged of manslaughter, went jailbird free. Rekia Boyd was a 22-year-old unarmed Black woman living on the south side of Chicago, and last night, no one showed up to march at her rally. I guess all the protesters got tied up. I guess all the Black folks We're busy making signs saying, "Stop killing our black boys." I guess no one hears the howling of a black girl ghost in the nighttime. We stay unheard, blotted out, buried, dead. Black girls receive tombstones too soon and never any flowers to dress the grave, so we fight alone. They will tell you the woes of a black man who got beat by police in the streets, beat by the man at work, beat by the system at the institution, but never of the black woman he took his frustration out on, never of the black girl he stretched into a casket. They will tell you of the boys who get pushed from school to pipeline to prison, but never of the girls who fill the cells, never of the orange jumpsuits they camouflage into. 200 black girls go missing in Nigeria, and America puts out a hashtag instead of a search party. No one ever causes a riot. The first black first lady is being called the first ape on all of the media outlets, and no one is outraged. There ain't no boycott of nothing. Down the street, a man did a hate speech to a black butch woman, and someone gave it a 10. Someone said it was freedom. People are still over there cheering. I guess queer black woman ain't black enough. I guess the movement ain't meant to be a crossroad. I guess we are here for play, make believe, pretend, poof. How magic trick missing must I become? How tight does my noose have to ring? How long does my body need to deteriorate before anyone can smell and rot? If a black boy gets shot by the cops, isn't it a tragedy? Ain't it the blues? Isn't it a misfortune? If a black girl gets killed by police and the killer goes free, does anyone notice? Do you still call it a lynching? Is her rally just a rehearsal? Ain't that why no one ever shows up? Excuse me for that. I think I was upset. I haven't done that in so long. Thank y'all for letting me, send that to y'all. Excuse me. This is a live show. I'm gonna follow up that poem. This poem, I hardly ever do this poem. But I am reminded, right? You walk through, me and my partner was talking about this. It's like, blackness is one thing, walking around and moving through the world, but how does that affect the body? The health, the physical health, the mental health, to always be carrying around that knowing stress, entirely something else. I'm gonna do this piece. And again, it's back in this book. I tried to fold the pages, plan ahead. It's called I Am Neither the Poem, nor the words, nor the letters, nor the images they elicit. On the morning this is written, a brown hawk uses its beak to pierce a blue jay on a light post in the street. The hawk carries the jay by its neck and glides across the sky. The birds in nearby trees chirp a chorus of fright or protest. On the day of my arrest, I conjure my death in 100 distinct sightings. When the officer pulls us over, I try hard not to look like a nigga. Try hard not to look like prey. Try not to ask too many questions where the answer is baton. I plead the fifth when the officer pats me down on the trunk of his car and calls me sir. I do not reach for something soft to use as weapon when the state troopers fold me in half and throw me into the police truck. I do not disassociate this bending from a coming of age. I do not unthink myself when I am sitting on the bench in the jailhouse and my hands are behind my back. I tell myself I am not face down. I am sitting on a bench, not an electrical pole. I tell myself my cheeks aren't burning into linoleum or pressed into boot print. I am on a bench, I say. I am upright, I say. I am conscious and can count the 4 shadows perched around me. I don't know if the officers are the hawk in this allegory, but I do know this story ends with the blue jay dead. When the 5th male white officer attempts to make conversation, I tell a joke. I jingle my handcuffs like a fat belly, jolly with laughter. I puff out my feathers. I shuck because I want to outlive this cage. When the officer takes my fingerprints and asks me to shift right for the camera, I smile. I praise the day they capture me live, girl, in a dead mug shot. I tell myself the holding cell in this small town is not a graveyard for a black woman tonight. I say I am not a passing ballad. Not a bird with a crescendo caught between its cheek. I say I am not to die at the end of this tale. I grin through the cop and into the clock, and I imagine myself painting a tattoo into the cuffs lead. I imagine instead of my name being carved into an epitaph, I hear it ringing out instead. I imagine my wife will hear me tell this tale of a brief brush with a hawk over and over. I guess this means that I see myself surviving, and maybe I am not the blue jay after all. Maybe I confuse my splendor for plummet. Sometimes death feels like a culmination I think I've earned. Sometimes my body is a story I think I know the end to. Maybe in this narrative, I am the sky. I defied an instrument that has used my hollow bones as fuel, was lucky to escape the hunt. Maybe in this fiction I am horizon, expansive as a long life lived, a front porch, a wooden rocking chair, forth and back into a black sun. The blue jay is dead. The hawk is figment. The sky is open and infinite and just a tell. How you doing over there? I keep revisiting this next poem I'm about to do. It's really just trying to reimagine some things, right? Reimagine some things. But this poem is also in this book. And I'm not a good dancer, but I do write dance poems. This poem is a dance poem. And it's about the Millie Rock. And because I'm super creative, it's called I Millie Rock on Any Block. I know not where you lie in the great hall of black boogie down moves, yet I know you are glorious, legendary. I dare not call you a dance. You ain't no mashed potato, no heel toe, no shuffle shuck, no jive. You summertime freedom. The emblem of any turn up. 2 times at the club. 1 time with DJ Washam at the house. Got my mama and her friends at the backyard barbecue. We open palmed procession. Taking in God's favor. A step from right to left and side to side and right into the fullness of me. Make me praise me and orbit around my chest. You sugar talk me into taking space. You love hard edge, swipe, move, stomp side. You are neither soft nor delicate. You are the last part of any city to be gentrified. The blackest of black movement, an indication of fight, survival, perpetuated long enough, it becomes rhythm no one can conjure. You are a battle drumming through my body, arms reaching, waving. You tell me the land is mine, even if it is stolen. Even if the ground is bedazzled in my blood, I shall will my anger shining. Forge each limb into a branch of my body's army, ready to riot, ready to dance, and it will never think to see us coming. Boom, boom. More dance poems. I love dance poems. I don't know if I said this, but I do a lot with Afrofuturism. This next poem is kind of a reimagination of a particular dance. It imagines we use the dance as a vehicle. And that's one of my favorite poems and one of my favorite dances. It's a line dance. It's called the Electric Slide. I have not done the Electric Slide this summer. It's one of those dances where everybody's doing it. It's at the backyard barbecue or the wedding reception. It's done with people, right? It's done in community, and we've been in quarantine, no more than 6, right, gathering. So, I'm gonna do that poem because of that, right? This is called The Electric Slide Is Not a Dance, Man. I want to privy you to a little secret. Come close. Good. So, what you need to know is the electric slide is not a dance. It's a transmission code. What I'm trying to tell you is every time I need to leave here, every time I need to get to a place that feels like my mama's cooking, or my brother's cackle booming from soot, I sound the gathering. I bring out the trumpets and the horns whenever I need to shake this crypt dust settle in my bones. I turn my stereo up. Just the other day, so-and-so tells me he wants me to teach him the moves. Like, I can't teach style. Can't learn blood to drum pounds. Can't learn blood to pound to a drum post. So slick, it glide. So free, it ain't. Can't teach him or nobody else who not from where we from what's innate. I mean, man, there is a place I need to get to. A grin I need to spread. A quaking of my foundation ungrounded from laughter. The cold and impenetrable thing. How the slide is suave. How the count off for the take off is the dip low. The count out the downswing recollects our plot of land on this earth. Picking a leg high, a knee raised, a turn to the left is the way we know to leave our massacre behind. Man, the dance floor is a square padlock you can't crack. Each space we take there is meant for us to occupy. Each brethren is attached to our fronts, our backs, our sides. This pattern is a shield against depression or oppression or hunger. Hanging out of someone's blue eyes, our bodies arrange a constellation in memory of the boy who was slain with no indictment. For the guillotine girl who went forgotten. For the housing stacked like the gut of the ship, the dogs in the waters. The blast off happens in sync and our spirits rupture ceilings. We ritual, sacred, secret, originators of a beat cascading. The electric slide is how we leave here. It's how we ascend. This kinship is how we get to a place named joy and go home. That's blood, man. History. Ain't no teaching that. Okay, I'm gonna do one more and I'm gonna get out of here. I haven't been writing much. It's been kind of hard, actually. I did get maybe 2 drafts in, but I did write this poem earlier this summer. And it was during Pride Month, and I'm going to close out on this because, intersectionality is a thing, right? being black, queer, and fat, and etc. Right? All of those things it's a thing. But Netflix was running a special, and for Pride, and they asked me to, write a poem, and this is that poem, and it's called Netflix Calls to Ask What Pride Looks Like for a Black Queer Woman. And I join in on the joke. I tell them a flag walks into a parade and realizes it's forgotten some of its color. So the vanguard adds black and brown stripes, paints blue, pink, and white in its corners. The funny part, there is no punchline. Haven't you heard the joke? Science tells us about the rainbow. If you mix all the colors refracting light, the result is a pure white, a pearly milk, an ivory tower glittering the procession. What color is the flag then? Which shade sits pretty up top the float? Black and brown people and trans women had to be edited into a movement they started. Afterthought to their labor, marginalized while marching. Isn't it gut busting how white supremacy works? How it absorbs all color. Isn't it ironic when the colors bleed together, white shines through? How it never ceases to surrender. Netflix asks what pride means for a black dyke in today's world. And I wonder if they've seen the news feeds lined with black bodies. I wonder what they think to see the streets filled with protesters protesting the protesters. Pride is a parody. Refuses to join the fight against police brutality, even though the first parade was rebellion. Don't acknowledge legacy, even though Stonewall was a thin-rimmed cocktail lunged at the cops. Netflix calls me with a knee slapper, with a tearjerker, with a death drop of a joke. I tell them to invite all the corporations. Fasten the rainbow into dollar sign, build a buck off this blood. Call up Adidas, your grandma, the liberals, the queers, new to the block, and the cookout to bring in the news channels to gape at the black and queer surviving, to marvel at the undead and me, James Brown proud, Janelle Monáe pride. Netflix calls to ask about the future, and my mouth wisecracks into a riddle. Haven't you heard the parable? Science tells us about the color black, how it exists before all the other colors show up, how it lingers long after they leave, how dangerous. My dark, dark humor still refracting light. The most mischievous joke around, been here before the shine, gonna be here after the sun fades the flag into memory. Isn't it funny? Me alive. End and beginning. Thank y'all so much. Appreciate you. Appreciate you.